The Terrifying Lies Podcast, with music and stories by Craig Nybo. Greetings, friends. This is the Terrifying Lies Podcast, and I am your host, Craig Nybo. This is the place where we reach into worlds forbidden, worlds redoubtable, worlds undiscovered. Today, I want to spotlight a project in my store that I'm particularly proud of. Several years ago, I created a board game called Children, a horror game. In the game, you become an intrepid ghost hunter exploring the Thornhill Mansion, the most haunted house in America. Your goal? Free 13 malevolent ghost children by reuniting them with their favorite toys in order to help them move on. While creating the game, I did tons of world building, including writing a chronology of everything that happened in the Thornhill house, a cast of characters, and an unsettling history for each of the 20 rooms. In the end, I had an enormous canvas on which I could paint many stories. Lately, I've gotten out the brushes. Along with the game, you can pick up one of the most terrifying stories from the Thornhill legacy. It's called A Boy and His Clown. I've put a link in the episode description. I've also placed a link to the game itself. The good news is, this story goes even deeper. Offline, I am working on an epic set of novels to cover the entire legacy. The series at present looks like it will be 4 to 5 novels. I'm not sure where I plan to release them or when I plan to release them, but rest assured I'll keep you up to date on the project. You can, of course, get a feel for it by picking up the game and the book in my store. Enough cattle scrapping. I know cattle scrapping isn't a word. But sometimes you just say something because it sounds cool. Like cattle scrapping. I could have said, enough 10 sandwich eating, or enough back ratcheting. Let's get on with the story already. Last time, I'm afraid I left you hanging. Let's solve that problem, shall we? If you didn't listen in to the last episode, I read a designer nightmare that places you right in the middle of the action. This story comes from a series I put together a while ago called Hypno Nightmares. In them, you listen while I bring you into a trance-like state, conduct you through a spooky story, and bring you back to the surface. For Terrifying Lies, I'm omitting the induction and waking phases of the nightmares and going straight to the suggestion or story. If you didn't listen last week, I encourage you to go back and check it out before proceeding. Otherwise, you are currently part of a geographical team who has discovered a fossilized Viking longboat along the coast of Iceland. This could be the discovery of the century, or it could be your greatest terror. Who knows? Well, I know, and I would absolutely bet on the latter. With no more delay, I give you Long Night of the Draugr, Part 2 of 3. Stay tuned afterward for a bit of commentary following the song. I'll see you on the other side. We don't have time to debate this. Sonia is arranging private transport tonight. She's asked for 5 artifacts. Let's get them and hang on to our jobs a little longer. What do you say? Sonia reluctantly concedes. 10 minutes later, outfitted with a headlamp and harness from your equipment cache, you rappel down a rope tied to the Hummer's trailer ball. Careful not to disturb the mass grave, you put your feet down on the outlying dirt floor. You study the mummified corpses, dry skin sunken over skulls, bony fingers clutching weapons and artifacts. Whoever buried the bodies took pains to ceremonially bury them. One by one, Robin and Randall descend into the crypt, their eyes wide with jubilation as they settle to the earth. Robin crouches next to the most prominent of the bodies, a male who must have stood well over 6 feet in life. The man's red beard still dresses his parchment chin. He clutches a long sword, both fists on the handle, the blade lying flat on his chest and extending downward to his knees. This must be the chieftain. She points at a golden diadem on the corpse's brow. These must be some of the most elite clan warriors. She looks over the bodies. Nearly a score of mummified Vikings lay side by side. Randall crouches down to one of the bodies on the edge of the formation with his back to you. He seems to be taking some kind of measurements or readings. "Randall, what do you have there?" you ask. Randall jumps with a start at the sound of your voice. "It's just amazing, isn't it? I'm overcome." Something feels off about Randall, but you let it go. "Let's gather 5 and exactly 5 artifacts and get back to the Vic," you say. You put a hand on the pommel of the chieftain's longsword. "I'm sorry, noble one," you say. You try to wrest it away, but the old warrior hangs on tight. You work it back and forth until you are able to pry it free. "I don't feel right about this," Robin says. "It's for the greater good," you say as you hand the sword up through the hole to Mendoza. As for the other artifacts, you decide on a round shield, 2 more swords, and the chieftain's diadem, more than enough to please Sonia. Thick fog rolls off the ocean as Mendoza drives you toward town. He slows the Hummer to a crawl, struggling to see much further than the front of the vehicle. Nobody speaks as you drift over the cracked highway. Robin leans against her door, arms folded, staring out the window. Your phone rings. It's Sonia. You answer.
"I called partly to apologize for threatening you earlier,"
she says. You thank her for her apology.
"Did you get what we spoke about?"
she asks. "We have 3 swords, a shield, and a diadem," you say.
"A diadem? Did you find some kind of Viking king?"
Vikings didn't have kings. He would have been more of a chieftain.
"Do you have any idea who he is?"
Sonia asks. "We're hoping to get a clue from the crest on the shield. We can't know for certain until we have a chance to excavate the site properly."
"Yeah, about that, I have good news. I made a few calls after we spoke. I managed to increase your funding. There's no fear of being shut down."
"How much funding are we talking about?" you ask, raising one of your eyebrows. Randall looks at you. Even Robin lets down her frosty attitude and glances sideways at you.
"You have virtually unlimited funding for the duration of the dig. You can call in whatever crew, equipment, and resources you need, as long as they're justifiable."
"It could take 2 years or more to properly excavate the site," you say.
"Not a problem, as long as you continue to produce. Also, I called the airport. I managed to book shipping through a series of private and commercial flights. You need to send someone with the artifacts to the airport in Akureyri. Go to the main office and speak to Hildir Gerdardsson. Make sure everything is packed with care. I and the investors are anxious to get our hands on what you found."
Robin eyes you with suspicion. "Well, of course I will adequately catalog and photograph these items before we send them," you say for her sake. "We don't want to lose track of even one of these historical artifacts."
"What are you talking about?"
Sonia asks.
"I thought I made it clear that I want these first artifacts off the books. If you want a job tomorrow, you will do what I say."
"Well, thanks a lot, Sonia. We're excited to expand our excavation." You hang up. Robin seems satisfied with your lie. You send Sonia a quick text. "I understand your intentions perfectly." She responds with one word. "Proceed." The Vic stands in an ocean of fog. You can barely read the weather-pocked marquee as Mendoza pulls into the parking lot and takes a stall next to the tavern's front doors. You and your crew get out of the Hummer and open the back hatch. The artifacts lie on the carpeted bed of the oversized vehicle. You can't help but think that you and your team have discovered something that could be seminal to Norse history. You scan for prying eyes, staring through the twin tavern windows as you outline a plan to wrap the artifacts in black plastic and carry them through the tavern along with pieces of excavating equipment. With luck, nobody will suspect that you have brought back anything but surveyors, shovels, metal detectors, and other gear. As you wrap the artifacts, sound cuts through the fog. It brings on a chill. You ignore it, thinking it must be reeds in the wind. Mendoza stops wrapping and taping and looks off into the fog. "Did you hear that?" you ask, gesturing with an open palm for the others to stop wrapping plastic and clanking equipment. You walk away from the Hummer into the fog. perking your ears, trying to hear the anomaly in the wind again. The sound resonates, a long, mid-pitched drone. It almost sounds like a conch shell, Mendoza says. Yeah, like someone's playing a conch, you say. Let's get this stuff loaded, Randall says. I'm getting cold. You write it off as paranoia and wind and help the others finish packing the artifacts and gear. Piece by piece, you carry the stuff past tavern patrons, up the stairs, into your rooms. To make it more convincing, you make multiple trips, carrying something different every time. Nobody pays much attention. That is until you spot Fingier, sitting with his 2 idiot sons. He eyes you as you carry a load through the tavern. In one hand, you have a case containing a surveying transit. With your other arm, you lean a tripod and longsword, wrapped and taped, over your shoulder. Fingier's face, hard and drunk, crinkles at you as you pass by. Once in your room, you make a show of photographing the unwrapped artifacts and writing up the paperwork, including condition reports, excavation site details, and early historical impressions. You allow Robin to go through your notes. She adds a few annotations and begrudgingly buys off on your logs. You tell her that you will scan and post the data later, a lie, but that you have to make sure the artifacts are packed and shipped as quickly as possible. She accepts your explanation. You and the others package the artifacts for shipping in fold-out cartons and foam peanuts from your stash of expendables. In the end, you have 2 parcels, postmarked for Sonia Foster's San Francisco office. One box contains the shield and diadem. The other oblong carton contains 3 swords. Should you attempt to carry packaged shipping parcels through the tavern, you run the risk of stirring up suspicion among the regulars, particularly Fingier. You decide to wait until at least he and his idiot sons leave the Vic before making your move. Someone pounds on the door, startling all 4 of you. What do you have in there, you scum? It's Fingier, his old man's voice slippery with the slur of drunkenness. The doorknob rattles. Locked. You're drunk, old man, you shout, gesturing for the others to hide the freshly packed parcels. You let me in, or I will have my lads pounding this door. Mendoza slides the shield under the bed. Randall leans the oblong parcel containing the swords against the wall next to a collection of other equipment. Fingier pounds harder, dribbling out something, probably crass in Icelandic. He lets up and utters something to his sons. After a moment of silence, something heavy collides into the door. The wood gives a little under the impact. Hold on there, old man. There's no need to break and enter. I think you've gotten yourself in enough trouble today as it is. Wham! Another stolid collision. The door jam splinters under the strain. Stop! You shout. I'm trying to let you in. The pounding ceases. You approach the door cautiously and release the lock. You open the door, noticing heavy damage on its hallway side. Havar and Ernst put down the hardwood chair they've been using as a battering ram. Fingier, red-faced, stalks into your room. He flicks his eyes around, scanning for anything suspicious. It's time for you to admit your treachery, he says as he continues to survey the room. You put a hand on the old man's bony shoulder. I think it's the drink talking. I'm willing to drop the aggravated assault charges if you agree to go home. Why don't you quit while you're ahead? Fingier traps your hand on his shoulder with one of his old man's claws and stiff-arms you toward the hallway. Surprised by his strength, you backpedal across the floor and tumble out into the hall. You stagger across the landing and smack into a short table. Fingier barks at his sons. Find what they have stolen and bring it to me. Havar shoves Mendoza to the floor. Ernst punches Randall in the gut, doubling him over. He grabs as much shirt as he can and sends Randall sprawling headfirst into the wall. You wince at the sound of impact. The idiot brothers toss the room, rummaging through your belongings and equipment. That's enough, you say. Fingier is at least twice your age, and you feel like a heel taking a shot at him, but the old man has pushed you beyond your limit. You shove him with both hands. He staggers backwards, his eyes flashing wide open. After a moment's hesitation, you decide to take it further. You ball up your fist and go at him with a right hook. Your wrist strains as you make contact with the old guy's chin. unaccustomed to punching, your hand will probably hurt for a week. Fingier, cold-cocked and shocked, teeters backwards, overleaning his balance. He tries to regain his equilibrium with a series of drunken steps. Before he finds his center, he reaches the stairs. To your horror, he plummets, ass over teacup, smacking and writhing a crazed, out-of-control frolic down the entire case. You gasp and put a hand over your mouth. Ernst and Havar stop searching. They move into the hall to investigate. When they see their father, now gurgling in the bottom landing, they turn on you. Ernst lights you up first with a left jab to your nose. The cartilage breaks on impact. You try to protest, but before you can get a word out, the two men lean into it, hitting you with blow after blow. You collapse to your knees and beg them to stop. They aren't listening. One of them breaks your grin with his fist. Two of your teeth dislodge and rattle around inside your mouth. The scuff couldn't have taken longer than a few seconds before Mendoza, Randall, and several patrons from downstairs peel the brothers away, leaving you to moan and bleed on the floor. When Rurik, Husavic's only cop, arrives, the two brothers sit at a tavern table. You and your team sit at another. Tolerating the icy stares, the two brothers haven't stopped shooting at you since the tavern patrons subdued them and forced them to cool off. Kala crouches over Fingier in the landing, too frightened to do anything more than give him water, hold his hand, and utter a few kind words. Rurik holds the door open for a pair of paramedics. They wheel a stretcher across the tavern and collapse it next to Fingier. One of them places a backboard next to the old man, while the other tells Kala to back away and give them room to do their job. With a few fine-tuned maneuvers, they slide the backboard beneath Fingier and lift him onto the stretcher. They raise the wheeled device and push it back to the ambulance out front. "Tell me what happened," Rurik says to all parties concerned. Both you and the Magnuson brothers jump into your own finger-pointing explanations as to how an old man ended up falling down a flight of 14 stairs. Rurik raises a hand to shush you. Rurik turns to Kala. "What happened?" "Fingier and the boys went up to the guest room and picked a fight. He's had a problem with them ever since they came to Husavik." "They're not alone," someone shouts from deeper in the tavern. Rurik turns to the small gathering of tavern patrons. "We almost put our personal feelings aside. I am only concerned with who broke the law. I hate to say it," Kala says, "but I think the lads are in the wrong." She folds her arms over her chest and inclines her head toward Ernst and Havar. Some of the patrons roar in protest. Rurik hooks up a pewter mug from a nearby table and slams it down hard like a judge's gavel until everyone shuts up. He wheels on the brothers, putting his hands on his hips. "If you promise to behave yourselves, I might find it in my good graces to let you spend the night with your father in the hospital rather than locking you up. Can I get your word that you will make no more trouble?" The two brothers nod. Rurik turns to you. "You are not allowed to leave town until I get word that Fingier will be okay. You're facing assault and battery here." "But I didn't do anything," you try to protest, but Rurik raises his voice over you. "Until I have a chance to investigate, you had better pray that Fingier doesn't die, or this will escalate at least to manslaughter." "I was defending myself." "You punched out a 70-year-old man. I am confining you to the Vic until I can get a detective and interrogator out here from the Ministry of the Interior." "How long am I under house arrest?" you ask. "As long as it takes. I advise going to your room and staying away from the locals. There are plenty of pitchforks and torches around. I don't need no more trouble." With no other choice, you get up from your table and head upstairs. The rest of your team follows you to your room. You leave the door open so you can listen to the goings-on downstairs. Rurik moves from barfly to barfly, asking questions, trying to learn what actually happened. "What are we gonna do?" Robin asks, sitting on the bed, hands folded in her lap. "Nothing has changed. We have to get the artifacts to the airport. We're done," you say. "If the federal officers do their job, I'll be cleared. It was self-defense. Randall, you need to make the run. Take the artifacts and speak to someone named Hildur Giarderson at the airport's main office. He'll get the parcels to Sonia. Other than that, I think we're just going to have to wait out the storm. It's a hell of a storm, Mendoza says. If we play by the rules, this could all work out in our favor. Remember that we were assaulted twice today. Rurick's interrogations go on for another hour before he leaves the Vic to review his notes. Most of the tavern patrons leave just after he does, their desire to drink having waned off. Mendoza and Randall use the nearly empty dining hall as their chance to smuggle the 2 parcels out to the Hummer. Through the window, you see the Hummer's taillights flick on as Randall starts the engine and pulls out of the parking lot into the foggy night. One problem at a time, you think. You breathe a relieved sigh at getting the artifacts safely en route. With Randall safely on his way, you, Robin, and Mendoza realize that you're starving. You decide to head down to the tavern and order something simple to eat while you wait for a report from Randall. Under normal circumstances, the route from Husavik to the Akureyri airport only takes about an hour, but with the fog, you estimate that Randall will be on the road for a good 90 minutes before he has a chance to drop off the parcels. You'll feel a lot better when the artifacts are on the plane. You don't plan to contact Sonia until that moment. Except for a small smattering of lingerers, the tavern stands empty. You find an isolated table and sit down. Kala takes your order, writing on a little pad. You appreciate that she keeps her own brand of disdain for you to herself. You sense it oozing from her, but she takes the high road and offers her best customer service, even under these circumstances. 10 minutes later, you start on a bowl of lamb's meat soup. The conversation between you, Mendoza, and Robin doesn't go beyond small talk. The circumstances have stamped out all of the celebration. You're consigned to nothing more than worrying about your future. You wonder what additional troubles the federal police will bring with them. After killing nearly an hour, you decide to call Randall. Mendoza and Robin continue chatting as you dig out your phone and make the call.
Going slow,
Randall says.
I'm only making 30 miles an hour. At this rate, I don't think I'll reach the airport for another hour.
When you get there, let me know if the parcels can make a flight tonight. Sonia was pretty insistent. If you don't make it, it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation with her.
Well, I'm doing the best I can. It's just that visibility is nearly nil. Even staying on the road is proving to be... What the hell?
Randall interrupts himself. What is it, you ask?
This is weird.
The Hummer's engine slows to an idle.
Have the police set up any roadblocks since our little song and dance with Fingier?
Well, I don't see why they would. All parties have agreed under great duress to cooperate.
Well, somebody put something in the road, but it isn't any kind of a roadblock I've ever seen.
Describe it. Randall gets out of the Hummer.
This has got to be some kind of a joke,
he says. What's going on, Randall?
I'm not sure if you're going to believe me, but it looks as if someone from the Middle Ages has set up some kind of a siege trap. There are 40 or 50 long, sharpened shafts driven into the pavement at an angle across the road. Should a driver hit them, they'd do horrible damage, maybe punch through the radiator into the engine block. Hell, they'd bash out the windshield and kill the driver.
Who would do that, you ask?
I don't know, maybe some artistic-minded protesters. I'm honestly too far away from town to think that Fingier had anything to do with...
Randall cuts himself short.
What's that?
I think you need to get out of there, you say.
Can you hear that? I'm holding up the phone.
You hear a distant, braying tone.
It's the same sound we heard earlier,
Randall says.
Only it seems closer. What the hell?
The line goes silent for a moment. Randall, tell us what's going on. You put your phone on speaker and place it on the table.
Someone's here. I see him moving out in the mist. What the hell? What the hell? No.
Thunk. Randall drops his phone. He screams.
No, please don't.
He says. He suddenly stops screaming. Randall? He doesn't respond. You lean in close, trying to pick up any more sound. You think you hear footsteps scuffling around the phone. Wham! There's an impact that sounds like a car accident. Several more bashes and crashes. With a final crunching sound, the line goes dead. You look up at the others. It's clear by their gaping stares that they share your confusion. We need to do something, Robin says. We still have the Volvo. It's crap off roads, but maybe we can get out there, Mendoza says. Robin gets up. Let's go. Rurik told me not to leave, you say. Then you think better of it. Well, screw Rurik. There's strength in numbers. Let's get our coats. As the three of you head back to your rooms to grab warmer clothes, your mind races to extremes. You know where Randall keeps an illegal 8mm pistol. Somehow, in spite of your constant warnings, he manages to smuggle it everywhere he goes. You reach under his bed and find a mini filing cabinet. You open it up and spread the hanging folders aside. And there it is. You snatch the pistol out of the box and tuck it in your coat pocket. The three of you leave the Vic. After an hour of driving through the thick fog, you spot the Hummer, pulled off to the side of the road, the glass of the rear window broken out. As you stop behind the big vehicle, your headlights illuminate the scene Randall described earlier. Scores of long spikes jut from the pavement just ahead of the Hummer. Stay here, you say, drawing the 8mm from your coat pocket. Not a chance, Mendoza says and opens the door. Robin follows suit. The three of you step out into the cold. You walk to the blockade. Someone carved each long spike from a sapling. The cuts in the wood were roughly hewn, as if the job was done by hand. The spikes have been driven right through the pavement and set at an angle to impale oncoming traffic. You shudder when you think about the fate of an unsuspecting driver hitting the blockade at full speed. The spikes would impale such a driver to his seat before he had a chance to register that he'd hit anything at all. Behind you, Robin gasps. She stands in front of the Hummer. Even out in the open, the fog is so evasive that you have a hard time making out more than her silhouette in the lemon glow of the Hummer's headlights. You move to her. She holds a hand over her mouth, eyes wide. As you approach, she points down at the hood of the Hummer. What you see there causes a dryness to spread through your mouth. This episode's song is called Night Awakening. I've decided to stick with a more foreboding, downbeat sound for this series' songs. They tend to match up with the songs I composed for a 3-part series in Season 2 called Dead Pact Oblivion, one of my favorites. A weird Western tale where a husked-out cowboy priest partners up with the toughest 13-year-old girl you've ever known to go up against a whole town full of demonically possessed villagers. Go back and give it a listen. Anyways, I like the dirgy down-tempo melody of these songs. Someday, I might bring them all together, clean them up, and make an album of them. And here we are, at the end of yet another episode of Terrifying Lies. As usual, I express my deepest thanks for your decision to take the time and join me. I can hardly believe it, but the next episode marks the end of Season 4. Every time I come to the end of a season, I'm faced with a big decision. As the immortalized punk band The Clash once said, should I stay or should I go? These episodes require quite a lot of work, and to be honest, I'm often tempted to end the series and move on to some other project. Currently, I don't know the future of Terrifying Lies, but rest assured I won't leave you hanging. I'll be back for at least one more episode to conclude Long Night of the Draugr. Until then, I bid you sweet dreams, or should I say, sweet nightmares.
This has been the Terrifying Lies podcast. Please come again. You're welcome here.